everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over a few things on how to move into the Amazon HR role. We will start off with a few of the basic requirements. Now, I don't know if these things have changed because I'm no longer in the role, and when I was last in the role, Amazon was doing a lot of changes with the role that I was in, which is the L4 Senior HRA, which is HR Assistant. But generally, the level 4 senior HRA would have required a bachelor's degree or 2 years of Amazon experience. I don't know if it's the same now. I believe it is. Just now, it's moved from hourly role into a salaried role, which was the dumbest idea that they had. But that's what they ended up doing, and so I didn't like that, and it's one of the reasons why I left the senior HRA role into another one. But that'll be for another video. But just as a requirement, they do require the 4-year bachelor degree or 2 years of Amazon experience to move into the level 4 HR roles. The next thing that I want to touch on is to know what the role is. A lot of people, think of HR as HR, but they don't really know what it takes to be Amazon HR. I haven't really worked at other companies in the HR role, so I can't compare, but from what I've heard from 1,000 other people is that Amazon HR is very different than other companies in a sense of like what Amazon HR does on a daily basis and so on and so forth. But if I were to really break it down into two big major core things, it really comes down to people skills and computer skills. If you haven't noticed, a lot of the HR people at your buildings very likely have 3 monitors, or they really should have 3 monitors. That's not because we have Netflix on one screen, YouTube on another, and then we're working on our third one. All 3 screens are pretty much occupied by 3 different programs at once, and one has the browser, one has the time card editor tool, and another one has some other thing going on. And then the browser has anywhere between 10 to 15 tabs open from all these different sites and programs that we use on a daily basis. So that's why we have 3 screens. It's really important to know that you should be able to, one of 2 things. One, already be pretty computer savvy, know how to navigate computers pretty well, and you don't have to be perfect at it. But that's the other thing, is that you either need to be already good at it or you need to be able to pick it up fairly quickly, because Amazon does move pretty quick. So it's important to be able to keep up with it. And the reason that I mentioned that it's important to know the role before you get into the role is because I was with Amazon HR for a little over 3 years, and in my time there, there were some individuals that joined our team as seasonal HR representatives, I think, for the most part, and they didn't like the workload, right? It just wasn't for them. They didn't like working with people as often as they thought they were going to have to do. They didn't like the work itself, and so there were a couple people that joined the role and it was too much for them, and they essentially were requesting to end their seasonal position with Amazon HR. Now, on the other hand, there were people such as myself and some other individuals that did join the team as a seasonal HR representative, and we thrived, right? We thrived in the chaos. I joined Amazon HR when COVID started, right when COVID started. So it was pretty chaotic. There was all these things going on. There's code going on. I was wearing a mask for 10 hours a day. It sucked. But I thrive in those environments, right? And so, it was really fast paced, and there's all this chaos, and I kind of like that stuff. I was never bored, right? So again, kind of going back to the core basics, it definitely comes down to people skills, knowing how to navigate conversations with people, nice people, angry people, mean people, rude people, everything, right? And then also, like I said, the computer skills is really important, right? Because we have 3 monitors going on at once. We're multitasking. We're getting messages from managers and stuff like that. So it's important to be able to multitask on the computer skills as well as be able to talk to people. So All right, so the next thing I want to discuss is the Amazon leadership principles and knowing which principles apply to the Amazon HR role. Obviously, Amazon HR is very different than Amazon operations, so like the managers and the senior team and all that sort of stuff. So we have a little bit of similarities, but I'm going to be super honest. I couldn't remember all the leadership principles, so I had to Google them real quick, and I just kind of got some that I thought that really fit the role. And you can use these when you're kind of structuring your resume and your interviews and stuff like that. And I'll kind of discuss that a little bit later in more detail, because those are big pieces into actually moving into the role. So the first leadership principle is definitely going to be customer obsession. I try to put these in order, so just keep that in mind. You can write them down and whatnot, save them somewhere on your phone or on a piece of paper if you're old school like me. But customer obsession is definitely absolutely number one. I mean, you're human resources, right? You're there for the people, and so customer obsession is number one by a long shot. The second one I would say would be to earn trust. It kind of goes hand in hand with customer obsession. So in other words, what I always tell people is that being in HR, it's a pretty important position, right? You have the power to impact the positive culture that you are looking for in your building, right? And so if your HR team or your leadership team in the building is unable to earn the trust of the associates or just the building as a whole, then the building culture is not going to be very good. So earning the trust of not only like the tier 1 to tier 3 associates and the managers, but just everyone in the building, right? You have to be able to earn the trust of everyone. And then, like I said, that goes with customer obsession, right? So we're kind of a support team, so we're there to support everyone else. So earn trust would be number 2. Number 3 would be ownership. Amazon HR, like I said, has a lot of things going on, but there are like projects and things that also kind of go on at the same time. So it's really important to take ownership of things, and not only ownership in like projects, but also ownership in like mistakes. Mistakes happen, right? And people, call them out, not in a bad way, but they'll just be like, hey, that number looks wrong. And then you kind of got to look back and then be like, oh, my bad, like that was on me, right? And just taking ownership for your mistakes goes again with earning trust, right? If someone is able to admit their mistakes, or like if I admit my mistake, right, then other leaders and other associates will see that I'm willing to say that I was wrong or I messed up, and that builds trust, believe it or not. And that goes towards customer obsession. And so that person, that associate or that manager will come to me more often as their HR partner, rather than someone that does not admit to their mistakes. Number 4 would be bias for action. So it kind of goes a little bit with the other things, but bias for action basically is, let's say you see a problem, and you actually jump on it, right? You do something about it. You don't just sit there and just like hope that someone else, fixes the problem or finds the problem. But instead you see the problem, you jump on it, you do something about it, you find a solution, you implement it, right? That's bias for action. It kind of goes with ownership as well, because you're taking ownership of the problem that you saw and you implement a solution. So that would be the 4th one. 5th would be to dive deep. I listed this one because there are moments, there's a lot of moments actually, either dealing with like metrics, because we do support the operations side of things in the buildings, but we also support the associates, right? And now that I think of it, both the associate population and the operations require the HR teams to be able to dive deep, right? So there's a multitude of different scenarios that I can think of, metrics, people, conversations that you're having with people. You have to be able to read people, right? And so, I didn't go to school for a psychology degree, but, I got an entrepreneurship degree. And, but in Amazon HR, I really gained the ability to read people. You can tell when people are lying. You can tell when people are hiding something from you. You can tell when they're hurting, right? And sometimes they'll just like bust out crying in front of you, right? But the ability to dive deep is important. And so I listed it here, just for all of you to know that, you can include this into like your resume that you write up and your interview skills, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. So I have 2 more listed here. I know I have a lot, and HR really does kind of include all of these, so that's why I'm listing them here and I'm giving examples of them. But the next one would be to deliver results. So I touched on ownership, I touched on bias for action, but delivering results again earns trust as well, and it goes into customer obsession, right? You'll start to notice that all of these kind of go together, for the most part. And so delivering results is pretty much delivering results, right? So if somebody asks me to finish this project and by the end of the week, and I do that, then I am delivering results, right? If I do it sooner and I do it better than they expected, I am exceeding those expectations on delivering those results, right? And then you can even apply deliver results to a very quick and simple conversation with an associate that walks up to the desk to you, the HR person, and they need help with their time card, something super basic, a UPT refund, something got messed up or whatever. Being able to have that conversation in a positive light and ensuring that associate leaves, they come in with a problem and they leave feeling that problem was resolved, right? Not only resolved, but resolved in a timely manner, right? You don't want to sit there for 10 minutes and take up all their time and then, make them worrying about TOT or TLI or whatever it's called now. But basically someone comes in with a problem and they leave with feeling that problem was resolved by the person that they just spoke with, which would be us, right? So delivering results can be very quick things like that, or they can be, week-long projects, month-long projects, and etc. So, and the last one that I put was more of a personal preference. Not every HR individual will do this. I'd say it's less likely that most HR representatives do this, especially at the level 4 level. But it's something that I did, so I'll speak on my personal experience. But the last leadership principle that I wanted to touch on would be hire and develop the best. And obviously HR is part of the interview process for most, tier 3 PA process assistant roles. We sometimes get involved with the manager interviews and stuff like that. But when I'm talking about this leadership principle, so I, for my personal experience, I actually, recruited a couple people to the team, right? I saw tier 1s that were out there. They were learning ambassadors. They were doing problem solving. They were top performers all the time, right? And I actually started out as a tier 1, so I met a lot of these people on the floor, right? And so I got to know them as a person, right? I struggled through MET with them. I struggled through these 10-hour shifts, standing all day with them. So I got to know them at a deeper level, right? And so when I moved into HR, I already knew these individuals, right? And so I knew who was good with people. I knew who could handle the workload that HR really required, right? The managing 3 screens at once and all that sort of stuff. So eventually there was some individuals that I informed that there was an HR position open, and I essentially forced them to apply. And so and they ended up getting the job, right? And then they kind of went on to do their thing, right? And then they stuck around and they're still there and all that sort of stuff. So so that's kind of what I talk about hiring and developing the best, right? Now that you're in an L4 kind of more leadership type of role, you have a little bit more what do I want to call it, just kind of keep your eyes out to give others opportunities the way that someone gave you an opportunity. And so I was always looking for those individuals. I mean, we had some people join us later, and even though I didn't necessarily recruit the individuals, I saw that they were really they were well beyond that of the other new recruits. And so I started to work with them a little bit more closer because I saw them as a individual that would get bored if they weren't given more difficult work, right? Because they were just zooming through the newbie stuff, right? And so I started to work with them. I kind of asked them, I didn't give them projects. I asked them if they wanted projects, two totally different things, right? And so they said, yeah, sure, like I have all the time, and they started working on the projects and they started enjoying the position a little bit more, right? Because they weren't as bored as much, right? So again, I was working towards developing this person. I didn't necessarily hire them, I didn't recruit them, but I was still developing this person. So anyways, just to kind of go over the leadership principles again, what I have listed: customer obsession, earn trust, ownership, bias for action, dive deep, deliver results, and hire and develop the best. Again, I highly recommend that you write these down because I will talk about these in the resume and interview section, and that way you can kind of relate and start formulating kind of like your own stories that you want to kind of bring up in interviews or in future interviews when you do apply for Amazon HR roles. All right, so for the next section, we are going to discuss the resume. So at this point, there's a position open, you're excited, you're nervous, somebody's telling you in your ear or nagging you about applying, and so you're getting ready to update your resume, right? And so you're wondering, what can you put on there? What should you put on there, right? And there could be some of you that tried to get into an HR role last time and didn't get it, right? So hopefully the information that I give you in this video will kind of give you a better insight of like what HR might be looking for. Now, it's good to note that every building, their HR team kind of handles the hiring of new members differently, right? Some sites have like grading rubrics, some sites don't, some like they just do everything differently, right? There is no like official standardization across the US on how to hire a HR representative, right? Which kind of sucks because it creates a lot of inconsistency, and I hate inconsistent stuff. But as I as I touched on earlier, ownership, buyers for action, maybe that's a project that somebody can own, right? Is create a nationwide standardization of how to hire an HR representative. But going back to the resumes, so Amazon generally hires in a different fashion. Most people think that it's good to put all of their work experience on there and just flood it, right? Now, if you remember to what I discussed earlier about knowing the role, knowing what Amazon HR is, it really comes down to two things, right? People skills and computer skills. So you really want to show those two things in your resume. So any management positions that you had previously, any positions that you worked with people, even like sales position, retail positions, right? You work in a retail store, you sell clothing, you're a cashier there, you work with people all the time, right? I'm sure you have tons of stories to talk about in regards to, crazy interactions you had with people, positive and negative. And so, that's the type of stuff you really want to focus on putting on your resume. Now, if and one can say every position out there works with people, which is kind of true. But you want to put the stuff on there that is more long-term, I would say like a year plus, if possible, right? To show that you were in a position for a good amount of time. And then I'm trying to think of an example of a position that, didn't really work with people. Let's say you put dog walking on there, right? It's not really working with people. You do work with customers, but you're walking a dog, right? You're not dealing with people on a daily basis as much. And so I don't know if that would really be seen it won't be a negative thing, but it won't really give you kind of like those bonus points, right? So yeah, anything that relates to people and the ability to like multitask and computer skills and kind of demonstrate that you are able to work and function at a high level in a chaotic environment, right? That's what you want to show, and that's what you want to tell in the story in your resume. Now, I will go over a very, very specific resume in a different video to kind of give you better examples. But for now, that's what I'm going to touch on for the resume section on this video. All right, so the next section that we're going to discuss here is going to be interviews. So at this point, your resume, you sent it in, you updated it, you sent it in, it was reviewed, hopefully, and they normally will take, it really depends on how many applicants are going on. Let's say at the building that I was at, we would get around 60 applicants every single time for like a process assistant role. HR is way less, it's usually like 10 applicants. But out of 10, we might interview like 6, right? Out of 60 people for the process assistant, we might interview like 10 to 15. It really depends on how many roles we need to fill, so kind of depends. But since we're talking about HR, we usually get around 10 to 15 applicants, give or take, and we'll probably interview anywhere from 5 to 8. Again, it depends on how many roles we really need to fill. But going back to the interview section, so the interviews, they are consisted of interviewing with 2 individuals. So if I was an associate, I would be interviewing with a manager, an operations manager, or an operations manager, so like an L4 or an L5, sometimes they're L6, and an HR representative. So manager and a representative, so 2 people. And so it's just the 3 of you, right? So you show up, and they give you 30 minutes to basically, you show up 30 minutes early, they give you some papers and stuff to kind of look over, and you kind of study. There's like role play and stuff like that, most likely. And so they give you the time to kind of read it, kind of gather your thoughts and whatnot, and kind of calm your nerves down, right? And then once you jump into the actual interview, you're going to do the role play, you're going to do the discussions with the 2 individuals, right? And so again, going back to knowing the role, right? It's people and computer skills. That's it. It's basic, right? There's a whole bunch of little tiny things in between and whatnot, but when it comes down to it, what those interviewers are looking for is, can this person work with people in a positive way, and can this person navigate the complexity of working this role, right? 3 screens, multitasking, running a report while also talking to an associate, fixing their UPT at the same time, but this report needs to be out in 5 minutes, but you also have to help this associate. Can this person do that, right? That's what they're looking for. So when you are sharing your stories in your STAR method, right? Everyone in Amazon knows what STAR method is. And let me just tell you real quick that doing your stories in an actual STAR method, bonus points, absolute bonus points. Because going through interviews, like I did various interviews in my 3 years there, right, at Amazon. And so I can tell you that as the interviewer, it is so much easier to understand what someone is saying and follow what they're saying when they put it in STAR method. If someone literally sits there and says, all right, we're going to do STAR method, S, here's my situation. And I'm like, okay. And then they're like, task, okay, action, okay, result, sweet. Like, I can follow it so easily. And if you want the interviewers to really follow what you're saying and understand and not get lost in everything that you're saying, do STAR method. If you need help with STAR method, like, message me. I will literally sit there, because I'll be honest, when I interviewed for HR, it was garbage, absolute garbage, right? I don't know what really landed me the job, but I did work with a lot of people in the past, right? So I think that probably had a lot to do with it, and that's why I'm talking about this now. So, but my interview skills were absolute trash, right? And so don't be like me and kind of get lucky to get into the role, right? But you want to go in there and show that you are different than all the other applicants, right? If there's 10 applicants that are interviewing and you do STAR method, there's probably, like, out of 10 people, there's probably like 3 to 4 that might actually do STAR method, right? So like 30 to 40%. The others more than likely don't, or they try and then they forget about it. and it makes it really hard for the interviewer to kind of follow what you're doing. And sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like really trying to listen to this person doing the interview, and I'm just like, man, they're just like going way off the rails on this thing, right? And that that's what I'll be thinking as an interviewer, right? And it's not necessarily a negative thing, but you can't say that it's a positive thing when the interviewers are not able to follow what you're saying, right? So highly, highly, highly recommend doing your interview in STAR method. The interviewers will love that, okay? So keep that in mind. Going back to the general interview. So STAR method, great. Your stories. A lot of people ask, like, what should I do for my stories? What should I talk about for my previous experience? Should I talk about Amazon only experience? Or should I talk about when I was a manager at Wendy's for the previous 10 years, right? Like, what do I talk about? And so, now that you know that you really should focus your storytelling on people skills and kind of, not necessarily computer skills, obviously, but kind of show that you can work in chaotic environments. Think about different times in your past, whether it was Amazon or previous experiences. And now I like to tell people it's good to do a little bit of both. Mix in a little bit of experience, right? Don't do all Amazon and don't do all non-Amazon experience. Do a little bit of both, right? Because they do want to see, like, hey, what is this person currently doing at Amazon now, right? Are they PA? Okay, the PA moving into HR. So what has this PA done? What kind of projects have they done? What kind of problems have they solved, right? And they also want to know about the manager at Wendy's. Like, what kind of problems did you face there? What kind of things did you do there? How much money did you save Wendy's on a monthly basis, right? Like, all these different things, right? So being able to tell stories from two different angles is definitely a plus. So going back to the people and the people's stories and the chaotic stories. Again, you want to do a mixture of both of them. I would highlight the people skills a lot more. You really want to get stories of working with people that are unique. The more unique they are, the better, right? So if I sit there and if I'm doing the interview as the associate looking to get into HR, and I tell them a story about a time when I was a manager at Wendy's and I worked with an upset associate, it's okay story, right? It's an okay story, but it's not like great, right? And if you really want to land this role, you really want to be great. You want to be better than the other applicants, right? That's what it comes down to. And so you want your story to be unique, right? Kind of crazy. You want it to stick in the mind of the interviews, right? And so you have to think about different times in your careers and your different jobs and all this sort of stuff, and think about the wild stuff, right? And how you fixed it and how you handled it and how you dealt with it. Because those stories are the best stories, and the more unique they are and the better solutions that you had for those unique, crazy stories, the more that they are willing to put you into an Amazon HR position, because they know that you'll be able to handle the crazy stuff that comes to you in the HR role at Amazon. So super important. And again, if you need help, I will sit there and I'll think of stories with you. You just got to fill me in on your experience, and I will, I'll ask you questions. I'll kind of probe, your experience, and then we'll get some crazy, unique situations out of your experience, and we'll kind of formulate some stories for your next Amazon HR interview. I think that's it for interviews. I will do another video that goes way more in depth on the actual interviews. I'll show some examples and whatnot. I'll probably have a guest speaker on that one. And so of someone that actually went through an interview and kind of hopefully they can remember what they said. But we'll run through that in a different video. So for now, that's what I have on the interview section. Again, just kind of remember people, chaos, can you do it? If so, show it. That's it. All right, another, we're winding down the video here, and I know it's getting a little long, but I really want to provide a lot of information on like how to get into the role, right? This is a more like unofficial thing, but it can do nothing but help, right? So the thing that I want to talk about now is just making connections, right? Let your manager know. Share your interest that you are interested in Amazon HR, right? You want to go into the HR role, whether you're a tier 1 associate, you're a tier 3 process assistant, whether you're a manager. Let your manager know that, hey, I want to switch over to HR because I'm interested in that. I really want to grow in that, XYZ, whatever, right? So start building those relationships, because those managers will start to hopefully connect with like the HR people and let them know, like, hey, this person spoke to me and they shared their interest with me. You know, when are you going to hire next? And then they might be able to get some inside details for you, not like cheating, but they'll get some information for you, and then they'll relay that back to you, so then you can start preparing for the next round, right? You should also get to know the HR team. Obviously, if you're a tier 1 associate, you go to the HR people here and there, and then they solve your problems, right? Now, one of the things that I did was I asked questions to HR people before I was HR, right? I was a tier 1. I needed my time card fixed, right? And I would ask them questions. Hey, what is it that you do all day? You know, is it crazy? Are you tired? Like, I just started asking questions, right, to kind of gain some knowledge, right? And most HR people are going to share these answers with you unless they can't for whatever reason, right? But ask those questions, right? Get to know these people. Get to know them by name. Say hi to them. Say what's up, because they're people too, right? And I think that's one thing that people forget sometimes, is that the Amazon HR people are people too, right? Just because they're not a tier 1 associate or a PA or manager, like, you can't forget that, like, they have their own lives, right, outside of here, and you literally have no idea what's going on in their lives, right? So, you know, you kind of connecting with them, being that tier 1 associate or manager or whatever, that's kind of always connecting with them, is a big plus in my book, because that way they will always remember you, right? And so if you're looking to apply in the future, let's say within 3 to 6 months, and they see your application, right, they will be like, man, this person demonstrated their people skills just by, you know, connecting with me, right? Asking questions, having conversations, talking about, hey, what'd you do last weekend, right? On their, I don't know, before work or something, if they get there early, just different things, right? So as a tier 1 associate, it definitely is going above and beyond, right? Making these connections with people. But if you want the role, right, you really got to stand out. So this is the type of stuff you really want to do. And, you know, people did that with me, right? They really stood out. They talked to me. They had conversations. And they asked questions, right? And so I would give them kind of feedback and like what they can do better and stuff like that. So, but yes, making connections not only with your manager, but also with the HR team. Let them know that you're interested in joining their team, and ask these questions, right? Like, hey, what does it take? What do you do? XYZ. So that's all I got for the make connections. I will touch on really quick on like, what does Amazon actually do? I don't want to go into super specifics, but I did mention that, you know, we had 3 screens or 3 monitors at once, right? And so we do a lot. But again, kind of knowing the role, I talked about people and computer skills, right? Very, very, very basic breakdown of what Amazon HR does, right? We work on time cards, you know, fixing UPT, applying PTO, that type of stuff. Super easy stuff. We kind of are in charge of the events for the most part. You know, Christmas events, peak events, all that sort of stuff. We start organizing all that. We are the support team for the operations, right? So the operations kind of run everything in the building, but we also help with the metrics side of thing. We help with the numbers. Not numbers like on their end, but like numbers in terms of like attendance, like, hey, what are we looking at? What are we expecting? All that sort of stuff. We also do like investigations, terminations. We do a lot of different stuff, right? And there's way too many to the list, but I will do another video on that, and it'll probably be a fairly lengthy video because we honestly do a whole bunch of different stuff. But I kind of want to drill that into everyone's mind that like Amazon HR is different from other companies. It is a lot more broad, but we also don't handle everything. Like one thing that we've never handled is payroll. So, that's more handled by like the Employee Resource Center, the ERC team. Amazon has different, they have a payroll group, right? Side HR doesn't handle payroll. They got all these other things to worry about. And one thing I will say before I kind of scare everyone away from the position is that, I was with Amazon HR for about 3 years, over 3 years, right? And I can 100% say that when I joined Amazon HR, which was during COVID and it was crazy, compared to now, right? Like, Amazon has taken a lot of different things off of side HR's plates, right? And they give them to other teams, or they create other teams. So for example, investigations, right? So side HR still handles investigations, but Amazon created a whole investigation team that works virtually, right? And they said, hey, there's so many investigations going on across the US that side HR is overwhelmed, basically, right? And so they created a whole team to handle basically just investigations. And so although we still do some in-house, it just depends on what it is. Probably like 80% of the investigations now go to that investigation team, which saves side HR like hours upon hours every month of any investigations that are going on, right? So yes, it is busy, but Amazon is looking to balance the roles and all that sort of stuff. Basically not have any positions be overwhelmed by so much work, right? So just keep that in mind, that Amazon has been kind of taking stuff off our plates, which has been great. It gives us more freedom to do more projects, more freedom to kind of do bias for action things, projects. I see a problem, I want to go work on that myself, and at the regional level or whatever. And so gives you the freedom to do that when you have stuff taken off your plate. So anyways, I think that's all I got for today's video. I know I went on and on about so many different things, but if you have questions, please leave a comment or send me a message, and I will try my best to answer it. But yeah, that's basically, the few things that you need to know to, start to consider to move into an Amazon HR role. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank now, so I'm just gonna say bye and call it there. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Please make sure to subscribe so that you keep, you get notified on the next video, and you don't miss any important information, especially if you're really trying to take this serious and trying to actually get into Amazon HR or similar positions. Like after Amazon HR, I moved into PXTOC, which is basically People Experience and Technology oh crap, I forgot what it's called. Something coordinator, whatever. Basically, it was like virtual HR is what it was, and you can get into that stuff too. And all of this stuff I talked to today still applies to that position, right? So there's different HR roles. There's employee relations, there's the ERC, there's the DLS, which is the disability and leave services. All of those roles, all of the stuff I talked about today apply to all of those roles. And because they all work with people, right? They all work with people, they all work on the computers, they all work in chaotic type of environments. Not every day, but they can be, right? Especially around peak times. So again, please be sure to subscribe. I definitely appreciate it. I know that the first video, did fairly well for its opening debut. But that's all I got. So I'm going to log off now, and I hope everyone has a good New Year's.